Welcome to the Reinvent Your Life podcast, the show that talks about why we do what we do and how we can do it better.
Welcome to the Reinvent Your Life podcast. My name is Chaz Molesky, and today we are going to talk about how to have an amazing, fulfilling relationship. I know this is going to be a big topic because a lot of times this is a big challenge for many people is how do I have a great relationship? Now, this is going to work for you if you're currently in a relationship or if you're looking to get into a relationship. You're going to be able to better understand why your past relationships maybe haven't really worked out for you, maybe why your current relationship isn't working out for you, but also what you really truly desire out of a partner, out of a friend, out of a great relationship. And we're going to get right into it. To start this off, you have to understand there are levels to love. And we all love each other in levels, and it really depends on what level of love you're in to determine how good your relationship is or how fulfilling your relationship will be. So the first level of love, this is the top level, is unconditional love. Now, this is the love that you see in movies and in storybooks and all of that other stuff that says no matter what happens, love will prevail, right? It's that dream that we all have. There's wonderful unconditional love. And unconditional love is truly the only way, the only form of love, the only level of love to be fully 100% fulfilled and happy in a relationship. And I'll explain why. Unconditional love is rooted in a we, not me mentality, meaning we're a team. We're in this thing together. Your needs are my needs are your needs. We understand each other on a deep core level to a point where we don't even need to communicate to understand what the other person needs, wants, desires, all of that. So it's a very deep, connected level of love. So this top level of love means I go to meet my relationship's needs first. So my partner, I want to make sure that their needs are met before my needs are met. Now, this isn't self-sacrificing. It's not saying I can never focus on myself. It's making sure that the relationship is wonderfully secure, everything is good, and that I'm there for my partner when they need me. That is the unconditional piece of this, is that I don't have to put any rules on why I'm going to help you. I'm just going to help you because I love you. That is top level love. There's no scorekeeping here. There's no threatening the end of the relationship. There's no holding out, right? It's all just one big piece of the whole. Now, the we in this is constantly reinforced and it comes first, just like I was saying before. So no matter what's going on, you're still a team. You don't get to just choose when you want to be a team and when you're not. You are just in this to go. All right. That's top level. Level number one, unconditional love. Level two is conditional love. Okay. So conditional love is more of a transaction, right? Think of a business transaction. So this is like, you do this for me and I'll do this for you. There's conditions put on the love that we have. If you don't meet my needs, I won't meet your needs, right? So this is where we punish our partner. This is where we withhold certain things, whether it be sex, romance, intimacy. We hold that back because we want to punish them for something they did, or because they're not meeting our needs, we're not going to give of ourselves to meet theirs, right? They have to perform. They have to do something for me to feel obligated, or for me to even feel inclined to do something for them in return, right? It's a matter of protecting ourselves. It's a matter of providing for ourselves. Now, a couple cannot stay at this level two of the conditional love. They can't stay there indefinitely. There's way too much pain. And the reason that is because if you really think about this, if all you're experiencing is conditions and transactions and an expectation of the other person to meet your needs in order for you to meet their needs, there's no passion. There's no reason to be in the relationship because you can have that with anybody. That's the same thing as if you were buying something or going to a restaurant, right? You're going to talk to the waiter. The waiter's going to bring you your food. You're going to give the waiter a tip. Works like that. It's a transaction. Well, when that starts to happen in a relationship, the love dies because it's not based or rooted in love. It's rooted in what are you going to do for me? And whatever you do for me will determine what I do for you and the level in which I go to for you. And how much I actually invest into you is all dependent on what you're actually going to do for me. What's the trade-off, right? It's like a barter system. So you cannot stay in this level forever. We either move up to that top level, level 1, and that unconditional love, right? That high level love where we're so totally 100% in it. Or we move to level 3, which we'll get to in a second. Now, in level 2, there's a lot of scorekeeping. Scorekeeping means, just like I was telling you, like you'll earn those brownie points and you can cash in those points. It's like tickets at a carnival, right? What's the prize you're going to get for doing all the good things that you do? And there's scorekeeping, but there's also threatening, right? Threats to end the relationship, threats to leave, threats that you're not good enough, threats that you're going to find somebody else. And when we threaten the relationship, what we're doing is we're putting a condition on it saying, you're not good enough for me right now. You have to be good enough, and then I will be in this relationship. This is a no-win scenario for anybody. The we here is neglected. There is no team mentality. There is no togetherness in this. There is separate but equal, sometimes not equal, right? And when it's not equal, that's when the problems arise. So if we move down to level 3, the third level of love, this is called SelfFirst Love, or you can call it selfish love. Totally up to you how you want to use it. This one means I take care of me and you take care of you. We are independent in this relationship. I'm totally self-sufficient. You're totally self-sufficient. And we leave it at that. We're not growing together. We're going to grow individually. This is a partnership. It's a business relationship. It's not a love-based relationship. This is just saying that, okay, we'll do what we have to do to get by, but that's it. That's the extent of our love. Now, what happens here is there's really no pain in this. It's more of a dull uncomfortability that we find ourselves in. And there's no pain because there's no intimacy. There's no passion. There's no spark. There's no deep level of connection. So you have an agreement basically that says, I'll stay with you and you'll stay with me because it's easy. It's convenient for both of us. You know, our bank accounts are tied together. We have kids. We have a house. There's a lot of things that we take care of. And when this happens, you begin to grow apart significantly to the part where it feels like you're living with a stranger or you're with a stranger. And now there is no we. There's just you and I, and that's it. That's the end of it, right? That's where it ends. Now, couples will stay here for convenience, like I was saying. But ultimately, the danger here, or the risk, is understanding that what happens when that convenience runs out. And what I mean by that is, if the kids leave when they grow up and they're out of the house, or the finances change, you sell the house, what happens then? Because the challenge here is, if you're growing independently and you're growing apart from each other, and the only partnership is the things that tie you together, or the elements of your relationship that tie you together that are not rooted in love, at some point you have to make the distinction, you have to make the decision, what do I do? The only problem is, we get to this point way far down the line. This could be 20, 30 years later of a passionless, unfulfilled relationship where we're just sitting in this. And this is what leads to a ton of pain, is that somebody wakes up one day and says, what have I been doing for the past 30 years of my life? Cue midlife crisis, cue panic, cue anxiety, cue all of the things that come into play to think of all this wasted time, all of the opportunity I could have went after had I just made a decision to leave, to change, to try something new. And unfortunately, a lot of people stay here. So here's where it's reflexive on you. If you are in a relationship or you've been in relationships in the past, evaluate where you are or where you were in those relationships. And if a relationship did not work out, what happened? What level of love were you in? What phase of love were you in? And now, in your current relationship, what phase or level of love are you in now? For those of you that are in amazing, wonderful, incredible relationships, you're probably in level 1, right? Because that's the most fulfilling one. If you're feeling like, no, I'm not really completely into this, or you're always judging what your partner's doing, chances are you're in conditional. Chances are you're level 2. And then finally, if you have no passion, if you have no thrill, you just wake up and, yeah, all right, I'm together with this person. I'm married. If that's where you're at, you're probably in level 3. Now, I don't want to say this as a way of discouraging you from, your own relationships or getting into relationships. I say this because you have to be aware of where you are to make any type of change, to move anywhere, to create anything. And this means within the relationship. If you want to build the relationship, you need to know where you are first to even work on that. Okay? So here's how you elevate. Here's how you move from a level 3 to a level 2 to a level 1, or from a level 2 to a level 1. Okay? This is how you move your way up. This is how you work on relationship. Number 1, you have to accept and understand that no matter what you do, if you do 110% of the work, you give everything you possibly can, you are absolutely 1000% invested in making it work, there is always a possibility and a chance that your partner is not. And unfortunately, we cannot change other people. We can influence them, we can work with them for change, but we cannot change other people. So before I say any of this, you have to understand there has to be teamwork. This is a 2-person job to make a relationship truly fulfilling and work. And if it's only one-sided, if it's only you giving as much as you possibly can with nothing in return, chances are you're going to turn bitter and things in this relationship are not going to work out. So you have to evaluate that for yourself. But if you do have mutual investment, if both parties agree, okay, some stuff's going on here, we both acknowledge we need to work on ourselves, we need to work on the relationship, we need to grow this. If you agree that you want to keep the relationship and you want to grow it, this is how you do it. Number 1, always comes down to communication. And I don't mean communication as a generic term. I mean communication that says, when you talk to your partner or your spouse, do you feel understood? And do you feel heard? Now, if you don't, and that's where you're at, you have to ask yourself a question. Am I articulating my feelings well enough to the point that they actually understand me? Because understand this, if you're constantly talking and you're saying these things and you say, oh, but I tell them all the time, right? I talk to my partner all the time about this stuff. I tell them all the time and they just don't listen to me. Well, guess what? They may be listening and they may be hearing something that you don't mean or that you don't intend. So where that leaves you is you're frustrated because you're not being understood, you're not being heard, and they're frustrated because they're not understanding you in the way that you expect them to understand. So now there's a barrier between the two of you, even though you think you're communicating. So you have to be very, very clear on the communication piece, all right? And what that means is you express how you feel. This is how I feel. This is how X, Y, and Z makes me feel when you do this. Do you understand what I mean? Yes, I understand. Okay, great. How do you feel about that? Right? You have to get their interpretation. What do they feel about it? Because even if they understand where you're coming from, they may be mad at you too. And even though they understand, they don't care because you don't understand them. You wouldn't believe how many times I hear this in sessions with clients, is that their level of communication is just a matter of mismatch. They just don't understand each other because they want to be heard, but neither side is allowing the other to be heard. All right. So from this, you have to communicate with a sense of understanding. You have to seek to understand the other person because you cannot fulfill and you cannot capitalize on their needs and help them out if you don't know what they need in the first place. So even if somebody needs you to understand them, maybe what they really mean is they need you to just support them. Maybe they really just need you to be there for them. Even if they can't express what they really mean, they just need to know that you're there. They need to know that you got their back. They need to know these things. But the only way that you would know that is if you actually seek to understand it. All right. Now, so communication is number 1. Number 2, do you guys have a shared vision for what you want in this life? Because if both parties want something else and want something different, or they have different expectations of the relationship that are not communicated, then there's always going to be resistance. Because if somebody wants something out of the relationship that they're not getting, but somebody else wants something out of the relationship that they are getting, well, one person's expectations are being met, but the others are not. So you have to unify and communicate this piece to understand, do we have joint expectations of the relationship? Are you in this as much as I'm in this? And if you are, what does your level of investment look like? because you need to understand where they're at. For some people, just being in the relationship is enough for them and it's fulfilling enough for them. But for others, they have expectations of the relationship. Now, here's a couple keys to understanding, all right? With these levels of love and moving towards a better level, right? And getting yourself to where you really want to be with the other person is you have to be fully invested in the outcome of the two of you, not your own personal outcome. I'm going to say that again. You need to be invested in the outcome for the two of you, not your personal outcome, because what you want may not be what the other person wants. Doesn't mean you can't go after things you want and chase passions. I believe truly 100% you need to grow individually in order to grow together. But in order to grow together, you have to have a shared vision. And you need to know this, okay? So in a relationship, all communication is a cry for help or it's an expression of love. That's it. All right? So the communication is, I need you to be here for me, or I love you completely. That's communication. And understand, communication is not just words. In fact, words make up about 7% of how much you communicate. For all you guys out there listening, because we are incredibly simple creatures, when you are speaking to your partner, please observe their body language. Observe how they react to what you say. Observe how they're taking in anything you're doing. Observe them if they're talking to you and you're not giving them your full attention. You will pick up on things. You will notice different body language cues. You'll notice how there is a mismatch in what's being said versus what's being heard. But you have to stay present. All right? So with that said, and getting to all of that, you have to understand dynamics. All right? You have to understand why we do what we do, but you also have to understand a relationship dynamic. In order for a relationship to fully work, okay, and that, when I say fully work, I mean very little resistance. Obviously, you're going to have petty arguments. You're going to have fights. You're going to do things. You got to think, if you're going to do life with somebody, at some point, there's going to be something that comes up where you both have to work through it. It's just the nature of the beast. All right. But listen, in a relationship, there's 2 rules. All right. Number 1, you have to be a good team fit, which means you have to be in it together. And if you're in it together, you have to work well together. You can be in something and be like oil and water and consistently be fighting and arguing and at each other's throats. That's not healthy. In order to be a good team fit, you have to have the shared vision like we talked about, but you also have to be there for the other person no matter what they need. You are a team. And number 2, there has to be a polarity in masculine and feminine energy, which means how you show up in the relationship, because there is only passion when there is polarity. Now, to understand these and to understand how to move up and down these chains and how to live a completely 100% fulfilled relationship, there are other pieces. You need to understand masculine, feminine energy. You need to understand different dynamics of how these things work. But that's a podcast for another time. So I'm going to leave you hanging a little bit, but you got to tune in next week because I am going to follow this one up. And I am going to elaborate more on how to have a wonderfully fulfilled, passionate relationship. But before we even get into that, you need to understand the first piece of this, and that's knowing where you are and where you want to go in the relationship. So if you're listening to this thinking, oh my gosh, that's me, that's exactly what I feel like, cool. Now you need to work on what you really, truly want. And if you're in a relationship and you want more passion out of it, you have to come together with your partner and figure out, what do we want? What is our shared vision? How can we grow together? And then you both need to listen next week to the next podcast that comes out, because that's going to be part 2 of how to live an amazing, happy, wonderful, fulfilled relationship. So, as always, if you got value out of this, please let other people know. Subscribe, rate this. I'm trying to get this podcast out to as many people as I possibly can, and I need your help to do it. So all of your ratings, all of your subscriptions, all of your downloads help. So please share the message, share the love, share the wealth, all of that fun stuff. Take this knowledge, apply it, use it, and reinvent your life. Talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Reinvent Your Life podcast. Now go out and apply what you just heard to start your reinvention. Please subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with those that need it most.